This is Capital Games Movie Club. I am The Wiz. Today, I am reviewing the 2022 superhero action film Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, starring Letitia Wright, Tina Huerta, Angela Bassett, Dominique Thorne, and Lupita Nyong'o, directed by Ryan Coogler. Now, before we get into the film, I just want to give a little background on the film and my thoughts on the Black Panther franchise, essentially. MCU's getting kind of stale for me. I got to be honest. And the quality is dipping, especially in this last phase. So, especially with something like Thor: Love and Thunder. But with that said, I'm still in the mode of I'm going to see every one of the films. But it's starting to wane a little bit. So bear that in mind when I'm talking about this film. So if you're still dead into the MCU, you may not feel the same way. That's fine. But in regards to Black Panther, the first Black Panther, in regards to the best MCU movies, I think it's around the third or fourth best. I still think the first Avengers is by far and away the best of the MCU movies, followed by, I would say, I don't know, Avengers Infinity War, and then Avengers Endgame. I think the first Black Panther is a very good one of those movies. It really is. It's a lot better than most. Do I think it's one of the best comic book movies ever made? No. Do I think it's one of the best MCU movies? No. But I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with the Black Panther franchise. And then Chadwick Boseman died, and that was sad, and it's unfortunate. But when that happened, I had serious questions as to what they were going to do moving forward with the Black Panther franchise, because not only is now Chadwick Boseman's not there, they killed off probably one of the best villains of the MCU, which was Killmonger in the first Black Panther. Spoiler. Basically, it left a huge question as to what are they going to do to work this out. Now, Black Panther had some unique strengths to it. It had a style all its own, and it had this location, Wakanda, that was really interesting. If they wanted to dive into more about Wakanda, that would actually be a great idea, because that was like the one thing about... There's a couple of things I had problems with the first Black Panther. One of them being 3 movies crammed into one, and the other is that the most interesting thing about the movie, which is Wakanda, I don't think got enough of a spotlight in the movie. So I was hoping when this movie came out and that they would have to deal with passing the torch from T'Challa to someone else, that maybe they would highlight Wakanda a lot more. So let's talk about what my thoughts are of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So, like the first Black Panther, the first Black Panther did a bunch of things right, and the one thing they did right was blend a lot of disparate parts together to a cohesive whole. It didn't do it perfectly. There were some issues, some that I just pointed out. But for the most part, after you watch the film, it stood itself as a very good movie. It had a style all its own. It had a feel and a mood to it that was unique to any other MCU movies. The lead actor was very good. The supporting cast was very good. And the music, the style, and everything was fantastic for the movie. So on that end, Black Panther did a very good job to stand itself out from other superhero films and other MCU movies specifically. When Chadwick Boseman died and they decided to do this sequel, it left me with a lot of questions regarding what they were going to do in terms of passing the torch, if they're going to have a new Black Panther, what are they going to focus on in this? What they focused on was Shuri in this movie, which... Shuri was a cute side character. She was interesting. I guess, will I say interesting? She was funny, and she was interesting in her own way, but it was a very slight character. And oftentimes, when they do movies where they take a less than important character and blow it up into its own movie, oftentimes what happens is it doesn't work out very well. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, but oftentimes that ends up being an issue because that character was not written to be a main character, so they were given less depth. Now you have to conjure up more depth to a character that may not have had it in the first place. I will say this, that the movie did a great job centralizing Shuri into a important character that is not only likable, but also someone that you can get attached to and that you have genuine feelings for. And they did this in numerous ways. So there's a bunch of dynamics going on in the movie that dramatically work very well. Her losing her brother, the kingdom of Wachovia now rests on her shoulders in a sort of way, and her mother's shoulders in the way. Her mother, played by Angela Bassett, is the queen after T'Challa dies. And they go through her personal struggles and her issues throughout this movie, which I thought was done pretty well in this. Like, so dramatically and character-wise, with Shuri, it's done very well. I think in regards to the other MCU movies, dramatically, it's one of the better movies that might be the best out of them out there. Maybe with the exception of Infinity War. I think they're 1A, 1B. We'll go that way, okay? I think dramatically, when it comes to what the characters go through and identifying with these characters, with Shuri specifically, it's some of the best writing that I think the MCU has had. And that's not saying much, to be absolutely honest, but with a writer and director of Ryan Coogler's talents, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise, especially if you've seen Fruitvale Station. It really was a very well done script and a very good performance by Letitia Wright that propels Shuri's story into something that deserved its own movie. And it's a great job on their part on the dramatic side. Why am I mentioning just the dramatic side? Well, here's the problem. The problem is that the dramatic is about 2/3 of the movie, which is good enough for me to recommend it, and I will recommend this movie. But the action parts of the movie are not great. First, the action seems to be a little too needy of CG, and it becomes very obvious as the movie goes forward. The specific action scenes that require Letitia Wright to be an action star don't land. I mean, at all, and I mean at all. The main problem is, I hate to say this, but I have a very hard time believing somebody who weighs 100 pounds wet can beat up strong, muscly men that are 230, 240 and bulked up. I have a little issue there, and they sort of explain it in the series as to how she can do in the movie how she can do that. But even then, watching that play out in her fight scenes is really odd to go through, and it's really kind of odd to watch in there. Like, I can believe that the one character that guards her in the first half of the movie, I believe she can fight, because they show that she is very capable of hand-to-hand combat and of weapon combat, and she's formidable, and she portrays that very well. That I believe. It was Okoye. I can definitely say, like, she can do that. I believe it. I own that. Great. But Shuri was not a fighter. Shuri was I guess, more tactical or more scientific. She did not fight at all throughout the last movie, or has any kind of hand-to-hand training. There is no way you think that you make me believe that she can battle men 3 times the size of her, even with the thing that they gave her that made her capable of doing so. I can't buy it on this one, and it's really hard to believe on that. With the dramatic parts of Shuri, I buy it, and I really like it, but on the action parts, not really. Even with action scenes that don't involve Shuri, the action scenes are not great. They are not as dynamic or as good as they were in the first Black Panther, which is sad to a certain extent, but makes me kind of wish they went a braver route and made the movie more about the political struggles of Wakanda and going through this change than to add another villain in there for no reason whatsoever on there. Oh, okay, maybe not no reason, But I think it would have been a better idea to make a movie just about Wakanda, and it would probably have been a lot better than it was. I've gotten through Shuri, Letitia Wright's performance, and everything. Let's talk about the other actors. I mean, the main villain, who is Tenoch Huerta, who is playing Namor in the movie. I'm actually familiar with Namor in the comics a little bit. I know they changed him drastically, which I don't care. It's fine. If you want to go that route, whatever. I really do not care. But the MCU has this weird problem that they have, is that they have really good actors playing villains that you can sympathize with and root for, and then in the second half of the movie, they turn them into supervillains. Like, the first half never happened. Like, at all. Like, well, let's look at Thanos, for example, okay? Thanos, you knew from moment one he's a supervillain. You know he's a bad guy, and then they justified. They try and justify what he was doing as a good thing, but at no point were you supposed to think Thanos was sympathetic. In this movie, Namor is a character that is trying to protect his people and protect his way of living, which you can fully understand. And they go into reasons why he acts the way he acts, and they flesh that out pretty well. So you sympathize and you identify with this character. But then you're left with this problem where he just becomes a supervillain in the second half of the film. I'll get into spoilers with that a little bit, but it's something that I wish the MCU would stop doing. We just dealt with this with Multiverse of Madness, with Wanda in this, where another great villain that you sympathize with, but then goes supervillain all of a sudden. It drips and it just drains the humanity out of that villain when they wanted you to sympathize with her at first and then pull the rug right out from under you. It's not going to work all the time. And it doesn't work here in most aspects. I guess the thing I'm saying is, like, the first half of the film I thought was really good, but the second half not ruined it, but it left an impressionable dent in my feeling of the film. Like, within the first half of the film, I was like, this could be one of the best ones that the MCU has. And then by the end of the film, I was like, that could have been better. And that basically is because they put all this depth into these two characters of Shuri and Namor, and then with Namor, they threw out all the depth and just turned him to a supervillain. And with Shuri, they made her into something that wasn't believable at all in the end. So with that dynamic not working very well, I mean, that does hurt the film, for me at least. I know some may disagree, but that's kind of how I feel about it. The supporting performances are pretty good. Dominic Thorne is pretty good as Ironheart. I mean, she doesn't get much to work with in this, so there's not much more to say on that. Lupita Nyong'o is very good as Nakia. Again, another character that didn't get much outside of that, so there's that. I want to talk about Angela Bassett, and the main reason why is because Angela Bassett is nominated for Best Supporting Actress, I should say, Best Supporting Actress at this year's Oscars. She's currently the front runner to win this, and I don't understand why. I don't understand. Now, I will say it's a good performance, but this character gets not much to do other than a few monologues, and then some standard mother-daughter scenes, and that's kind of it in this. And I'll go into spoilers a little bit as to what happens with her in the end, but if she wins the Best Supporting Actress this year, I guess the reason will be because they thought she deserved it for her career, because this performance isn't anywhere near Angela Bassett's best. It's a fine performance. It's fine. But I watched this going, it's good, but is this really award-worthy? Like, I don't think so. But that's what happens with the Oscars a lot, is that they don't honor the actors for performances usually that they did great jobs in. They do the makeup award, where you should have gotten it for this one, so for the next one you'll get one. And I guess that's what's happening here with Angela Bassett, or they're honoring her career by giving her an Oscar this time, which I don't get why they do that, but oh well. That's all you can do on that one. But it's not a bad performance, but I wasn't too impressed by it. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so why don't we get into spoilers for Black Panther Wakanda Forever? If you have not watched the movie, you can turn this off and come back when you're ready. I'm going to get into spoilers for the movie in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I said in the review that I thought the first half was great and the second half not so much. Let's get into the second half. So what happens, basically? The plot is that these people that are led by Namor also have vibranium in the ocean, but they use that to create their city and protect themselves in that city. And what they're afraid of is people finding that stuff and going after them, which led them to attack an American cruise, an American military base that was trying to extract their vibranium. And then the U.S. thought that was Wakanda that was actually attacking them. So that was causing a bit of world issues in that. So here's the problem with number one with that. There could have been an interesting dynamic with America and Wakanda. The culture clash and everything like that, and have a powerful message in between that. They didn't go that route. This is the last that you'll ever hear about the Americans doing something, except for some interstitial kind of scenes involving Everett Ross, who's played by Martin Freeman. That's all you're going to get in this one. So that dynamic thrown right out. So you have this issue where these two groups of people should not be enemies. And they aren't in the first half because Shuri is trying to bridge the gap, and both Shuri and Namor are trying to pull that off. And then one thing happens, and then all goes to shit. And that's not a bad plot device to go to on that, but they don't add any dramaticism when it comes to that, other than, oh, you did this, so I'm going to kill you all now. But when it comes to Namor, at no point did they actually show that Namor was actually capable of doing something like that. They show him as a tough leader, but as a just leader. And when they went when they went that route and then turned him into an invading force, it kind of felt false in that, which led to some dramatic things such as Queen Ramonda getting killed by Namor, by drowning her, essentially. I thought that was a missed opportunity on several levels in the second half of the movie. And then when we get to the action parts, like, the action is okay at best in there. And then the final fight was between Namor and Shuri. Shuri becomes the Black Panther. You probably already know this by now. Yeah, even when she takes the serum that turns her into the Black Panther and gives her her superhuman strength, I have a real hard time seeing a 95-pound girl beating up a 250-pound muscle guy. I really do. Even if you can put away like, oh, but she has superhuman strength by this nectar. Yeah, okay, great. But you still have the visual problem of this really tiny girl beating up this huge guy. Like, that is really hard to pull off, and this movie does not pull it off. Like, at all. Like, seriously, not at all. Like, you see the final fight scene, it's like, eh. And then suddenly she's able to do all these different hand-to-hand combat things where she's had no training whatsoever to do that. Another issue on that. Even with that, like, even though the action part was disappointing, dramatic parts of the movie are still very good. Like, I mean very good in this. I guess if I were to put, like, dramatic chops when it comes to the best dramatic interpretations in comic book movies, this would be like number 2 or 3 behind, I would say, Logan. I would say 2. I think Logan is the best of the superhero films, both dramatically and action-wise. Logan is fantastic. I think in terms of the drama involved, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is second. But because it's married to the substandard action scenes that don't provide that much excitement or intensity or anything interesting outside of what's going on, I have to dock the movie off of that. I do, unfortunately. And when the climax of the movie involves the main character fighting the villain, and it doesn't look believable in the slightest, it's a problem. The other issue that I have with this film, not really an issue, but it's something that I wish they would just do. Maybe do a series of this. I don't care. I want more stuff about Wakanda. I want more about the political nature and the just the nature of Wakanda and how the place is run and all the different political things that happen in that area. Like, I want to know more information, and it seems like every time that they show Wakanda in any MCU movie, it's just bits and pieces, or it's some visual flair, or it's just a marketplace, or it's a throne room, and that's it. That's all there is. It's kind of disappointing because Wakanda is really the biggest strength in the Black Panther franchise in this, and they just show less and less interesting stuff about it. I think that's a mistake, and if they keep doing that in, like, let's say the third film, which they're bound to do, let's say in the third film they don't go more into it, then you have a setting that just feels shallow in this end, unless you have a specific attachment to it. I don't have that, whatever that specific attachment is, so I just wanted to know more about the land and the people that are in it. Like, I think if you do an 8-part series or a 6-part series on Disney Plus about Wakanda and the political nature and everything about it, you would have a fascinating series. Maybe get someone maybe Ryan Coogler won't do it, but get somebody who will dive deep into the political nature and everything on that, and maybe we'll have something there. So I'm not going to fault the movie on that specifically. It's something I wish they would do, but by the third one, they got to have more depth in Wakanda, because if they don't, then it's just a setting, and that will be a very disappointing way to just turn Wakanda into just a pretty setting at this point. Okay, so my final thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I like the movie. When I first heard about the opinions of that movie were kind of mixed. It kind of disappointed me. But dramatically, I think it's great. I think the drama involved in it, with Shuri overcoming her sadness and her grief over her brother and moving forward to being a leader, I think actually was very well done. It's just the action parts didn't work. And because the MCU is a lot of action and a lot of visual set pieces, I have to dock the movie for it, unfortunately. But if you liked the first Black Panther, haven't watched it yet, you should watch it. It's very good. And it makes Shuri into a better character in the end, which I think is a great thing. Other than that, I mean, I wish it was better, but the dramatic parts of it are a lot better than most of the other MCU movies. So on that note, like, I would say if you're kind of tired of MCU movies, still give this a shot. If you've seen the first Black Panther, it works pretty well in this movie. Other than that, if you're an action person, you could skip this, but you'd be skipping, I think, a pretty good movie. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think I gave the first Black Panther 3.5. I don't think it reaches the heights of the first Black Panther, because the mix in Black Panther was so well done that to compare it equally to Wakanda Forever would be wrong. I will say the dramatic stuff is better in Wakanda Forever than in Black Panther. There are too many glaring weaknesses in Wakanda Forever that I couldn't do it above Black Panther. But I would say definitely watch it if you're interested. I think it's a pretty good movie. I think it's very good, actually. But it just doesn't reach what the first one did. Still a good movie. I'd say still watch it.